mean, they were very interested in the good message. They were saying that they would like to have the superpower to save the world, even to save Bologna from terrorism, they said, or even to save Naples, actually, because it's like Bologna, it could be. So they were speculating on the actual social and historical conditions of the country, and trying to think of themselves as the future wings, as the possible superpower, as a possible owner of superpowers, and intervene in that. And this is exactly the message, the kind of Catholic cultural message of the wings. But they were not, I mean, the iconography, they were more interested in the shining costumes and in the fashion.
And it was interesting because the boy fans in the group were not particularly drawn to the weapons that so the Winks have their counterparts that are male, right, the specialisti, and they have weapons. But that wasn't particularly interesting, at least for this group of boys. They were much more interested in the magic, in the transformation, and that's not really that surprising, since in terms of psychic play, that's where the child gets to become the adult. That is to say, come with the power to really affect change and make her or himself felt in the world. And so that was really the most interesting thing, and it was irrespective of gender. What they noted was that the fans were they thought it was really slow, that the transformation was really taking far too long. They wanted it to step along.
Yeah, and just one last thing is that the boyfriends are actually not endowed with superpowers at all in the Wings, which is really very important. Only the women, the girls are. And so there was not very much interest for the weapons, because the superpowers were so much more shiny and interesting and active in anything. Yeah.
Well, do you think there is a solution to this conflict?
I think there's a reconciliation of this conflict, if that's the way you want to look at it. I think that it's a very deliberate recognition of different sorts of social, historical, and I guess I would say cultural and ethical powers that come together to help shape either the ideal consumer or the strategy by which the company is seeking to reach consumers.
Yeah, there are also many charity programs and many humanitarian activities that actually are promoted by the Rainbow. And this is how the reconciliation takes place. I mean, the attempt of this reconciliation. So just trying to combine the ethical and religious stances with the actual neoliberal project that the Wings.
I just wanted to add that one of the things that's so interesting is that it is rather sui generis, this kind of reconciliation, and depends in no small part on Don Pigini and the cultural context in which Rainbow takes place. He is a very unusual figure. We're interested elsewhere in the pastoral edutainment that goes back to his interest in education and in language, and how that has both steeped the project in that particular culture, but also seeped into the project.
And we're talking about edutainment and addressing the Don Pigini topic, because he was the first one who in the late 60s promoted the teaching of Latin through comic books. So he started, there were summer camps where little students were actually working on this Latin in comic books, and then English came. So the study of the foreign language. So as we said, Don Pigini has a very strong entrepreneurial instinct. So this is why we're talking about the pastoral edutainment. He's a great figure. At the same time, he doesn't, like a Foucauldian figure, he doesn't really impose this discipline on you. The discipline comes because there is some social pressure, cultural instances, and religious culture that are actually shared by the community.
But one thing that's certain is that Don Pigini has remarkable skills for market prediction. And so he looked out into the future and saw comic books, English language, and the falling away of Latin, and found ways to both address the ways in which Latin was less familiar with students and their interest, the necessity for young parishioners in the Recanati territory to be able to compete in a global market would require English. And so he tried to work on his arsenal of pedagogical tools and in order to help inculcate English among very young parishioners.
And I would say even more important, he helped professionalism to develop in the region. So, and he was really very convinced about that. He wanted the people in the Le Marche region, in the middle of a kind of economic crisis which was all over the world, to reconvert their own education and start being, teachers of English through comic books, or new professionals in many different areas. That actually we showed in music, for instance, publications.
Right, and so that would be the content-driven response to that. But there's also the fact that an agile or a supple machine that would allow the economic development in the Recanati territory to shift from one kind of industry into another. And that's what I'm saying about the very enviable powers of market prediction, to look out and say, my parishioners are building fisarmoniche, and eventually no one will play the fisarmonica, or won't be as popular as it is in the 50s and the 60s. What can I, in my role, my pastoral role, do to improve the daily working lives of people in my parish? So that's why we see him as standing at the crossroads, or at the intersection of Don Milani and Don Sturzo, right?
Well, and also, the social doctrine of the church. Actually, this is what the social doctrine officially says. We need to work for the wellness and the well-being of our parishioners. So he actually, put into place this very, very important message. But again, he's behind it. Nobody knows. And but if you go to the text, there are semiotic traces of this, and there is so much important industrial information and background.